Hi and welcome to today's video. Today is going to be the last video in the series of Learn CAD, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at Onshape assemblies. We can do further videos on this in the future. We can do Fusion 360 videos. If anybody wants to see it, just let us know in the comments. But today is going to be the final video on Onshape assemblies. Okay, so let's jump straight in and switch to the Onshape window. So this is the Onshape window. We're straight in, and we've got an assembly. Well, you've always got an assembly really, because down here when you create a new document, you get a part and an assembly. And as you can see, I've created a couple of parts, and I've got an assembly which is empty. So to create a part, you just click this plus down here at the bottom screen, and you hit Create Part Studio. I don't know why they call it Studio. It's just that's what it's called. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly sketch up the final part of this assembly. Oh dear me, that was in the wrong place. As we've seen before, let's just dump that in. Dimension 8 and dimension 18. Like I say, we've seen this before. We've all done extrudes, revolves, etc., etc. And we all know how to create parts. So there's our part. It's a simple, yeah, I'm going to call it slider. So down here where it says Part Studio 1, you can just right click and say rename, and I'm going to call that, can't even say the keys, slider. Right, so now we've got a slider, we've got a holder, and we've got a base plate. Pretty cool. So I want to assemble the base plate, the slider, and the holder together. But what I want to do really is I want to assemble the slider and the holder first, and then I want to assemble them onto the base plate. So I can create another assembly. There we go. And I can use the insert feature up here just to insert the holder. Let's just green tick, and the slider, let's just dump that anywhere, into an assembly. Now we've got two parts in an assembly. It looks pretty cool, yeah? And if you get a hold of them, you can drag them around. The general rule of thumb is the first part that you drag in, if you right click it, say fix, and that means that that's not going to move when you're trying to assemble stuff to it, okay? If it does, it's bad news really, because everything kind of changes. And this one, we can now drag it and we can put it kind of in the right place. We want it to kind of sit in there. So how do we get it to sit in there? Well, like sketching with your constraints for equal length and vertical or horizontal, we have constraints for assemblies, and they're all up here. We've got fixed, rotation, slider, planar, cylinder, which is basically slider and rotation at the same time. And that's a slot follower, that's a ball, that's parallel, and we've got tangent. And they all have very unique features. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is I'm going to use a planar on this face. Oh, what the hell is that? On this face here. Now, as you can see, as soon as you click a constraint and point at something in the graphics window, you get these weird kind of like icons popping up, and you might think, what the hell are they? Now, they are the anchor points for your mate. So in this case, we're going to use this face, which is that anchor point there, and we're going to turn the model round, and we're going to use this face, but oh, this face gets lots. So it puts an anchor point at the end and the middle of every line and every face. So that one's in the middle of the face. Yeah, we'll just use that one. Right, okay. So now what it's done is it's linked those two anchor points together. But this is a planar mate, so it means you can still move it, which is quite nice for us right now, because you can see those two faces are still touching. There's a bit of an issue there, but we'll deal with that in a minute. And we can see what we want to do next. So the next thing we want to do is we want to get this face and this edge to touch. And the way you do that is you use tangent. Tangent this face to this edge. Press OK. And now you can see we can move it, and it just rotates around that edge. Now we can do that to the other side, which is pretty cool. Tangent this face. You have to manually select, even though you can like only select one face, it doesn't automatically move the selection box. Thanks, Onshape. It's quite annoying sometimes, so that's something to watch out for. Right, so there you go. We can't move that anymore. We can't move that anymore. And if we do a cross section from there and just drag it back, we can see quite happily that they touch. That's pretty cool, yeah? Well, the issue you have with this, let's just suppress that for now. The issue they have with this is this. That can resolve in two positions. Because that, if I move that up a little bit and then unsuppress that, there you go. We have no errors down this side, and that has resolved, but that is clearly not in the right place. It just looks crazy. So what you want to try and do, I'll just put it back, is take out as much of this kind of like unknown as you can. And the way to do that, in this case, I'll just turn off the section view. The way to do that in this case is literally to measure the distance from this face to this circle, to the center of this circle, and then mate that with a measurement rather than with this kind of like crazy tangent thing that can move. And the way you measure things in Onshape is you just click them. So you click that face, and it says there minimum distance 2225. What that means is that that's the smallest distance. It's from the very bottom of this circle to the very top of this face, which is pretty useless really. So if we expand the measure, we can now see it says 6.225 to the center of the axis. And if you point to it, you can't rotate. When that's popped up, you can't rotate the view. So let's just square the view up. And let's point to it again and do center of axis. And there you go. That's the exact measurement you can see right there. So 6.225 is the measurement we want. Now we're going to go back and we're going to delete all of our constraints because we're crazy. We're going to move that up just so we can see. And we're going to add a fixed constraint or a fastened constraint. And we're going to add it from the center point of this side to the top point here. And that has locked those exactly right. And you're exactly right. That hasn't done what we wanted it to do at all. But we need to press this offset button. And then you can see there's kind of like some little colored icons on the glyph there. So if we start messing with some numbers, whoops, that went the wrong way. So let's put a minus sign in front of it. We can quite quickly get that into exactly the right place. It's always going to regenerate this part with respect to this part, 6.225 up to the center, so we don't have to worry about it moving around. And we'll just confirm that again with the cross-section tool. Okay, so there. Oh dear. Right, let's just move it in a bit. There we go. So we can now confirm that with the cross-section tool. That's touching. And that's touching. But what you might have saw there was a whole lot of red there, that bit. That's not good, because that means that this is now intersecting it. Let's just have a look at this a bit longer. Turn off the section view. So if we look at it from the other side, we click this face, and we look at it from here, and we click this face, we can now see that our slider is longer than our gap, and it's longer by 2 millimeters. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, you just quickly switch to the slider and then you just edit the extrude and you just change it. Well, there's another way. We can go to assembly 2. Let's just quickly rename assembly 2 slider and holder so that we can identify it easier. And what we can do is we can right click this part and say edit in context. Now, as you can see, this is kind of grayed out, but you can still see it on the screen. You can still see the hole and everything. But you can now get to these features. So that was no, 20, not 200. And then we can go back to the assembly by clicking the button in the middle. And now we can see everything's fine. And we can just use a cross section on this side, ram it to there, and we can see that everything fits in there nicely. So you can edit parts from within an assembly without closing the assembly, going back to the part, and you can see what's going on quite quickly. That's quite nice. Right, so that's our slider with holder assembly. Now we want to create our top level assembly or another assembly. So what we can do now is we can switch to our assembly and go insert base, and we'll just click the tick. Oh, it's a bit small. Let's bring it in. And we know the rules. We've got to right click and fix its position because we don't want it moving around. And then we want to insert our assembly. It's not there. We don't want to go and insert 3 holders and 3 sliders because that's just crazy. We want to access our assemblies. So the way you do that is you press the Assemblies tab, not the Part Studios tab. And that will search for any assemblies that you've already created. You can also switch the Other Documents tab and bring assemblies and parts in from other documents that you have in Onshape. But we're just going to use the current document and we're going to use assemblies. So you click and you stamp it down, you click and you stamp it down, you click and you stamp it down. And let's get rid of that. Right, so now that everything's looking pretty cool. Let's just move some stuff around by just dragging it with the mouse. Okay, so that view looks pretty good. That view should be okay there, and let's go to the top and let's move that to the the holes on the wrong way around. Yeah, they should be rotated through 90 degrees. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways you can fix this. The first thing you can do is just click this sub-assembly and you get this kind of like weird glyph here. And if you click the arrows, you can move it. And if you click the circle, you can rotate it. So you can rotate stuff to 90 degrees. And that is now, just drag it into place. That's now going to line up quite nicely. And what you can do then is you can add your fixed mate on that hole, that hole, and on the bottom side of that hole, and press the green tick, and everything lines up quite nicely. And you can't move it because it's a fixed mate. So you can do that to these ones. You can click and rotate them, or you can do something else. Let's just position that so we can see both the holes. If you use your fixed mate and just click on that hole and click on that hole, as you can see, it jumps down into the wrong position. Now there's a button which you can press, and it's kind of like, oh look, when it's in the right orientation, that's the wrong hole. So we can change that hole. Let's do it again now that we've moved it out of the way, and you can quite nicely click through the geometry. So if you point at the hole, that's the top, that's the middle, and that's the bottom. So you can click like that. So you can rotate things and move things and change things while you're adding the constraints, which is pretty nice. What I'll do is I'll just quickly add this one. I'm going to add a different constraint onto this one. I'm going to add a revolve, or revolute. Whatever word you want to use, it makes it turn. So if we do the same again and we go from that hole to that hole and then just click OK, what you'll find is you can drag it and it turns. So you could then add another constraint between 2 other holes, or you can just go back into your revolute and you can edit it and you can set an offset at 90 degrees. That's not degrees. Why? Oh, okay. So that's just 90 degrees up. Not 90 degrees, 90 millimeters up. So you can only offset that one higher or lower. I guess it makes sense to someone. Doesn't make sense to me. And we can put some limits in. So we can say that we want it to be limited between 90 and 180 degrees. Now, what that does is that will only allow it to turn between 90 and 180. So there's a whole load of different things that you can do to these constraints. And there's a whole load of constraints that you can add, like just the rotate and the slider, the cylindrical. That's quite nice because you can set things up and you can make them slide. What I'm going to quickly show you is an assembly that I created a while ago. This is a 3D printer that I was going to build. I'm not sure if I am anymore. It takes a couple of minutes to load because it's quite a size. Please wait, I guess. Please wait longer. Here we go. And this has various different mates in which allow kind of like the print bed to slide and the x-axis to travel up the Z. And of course, if you added some more sliders on here and an X carriage, you could have that sliding that way. So you can create some pretty intuitive models just by using assembly constraints, and then you can kind of like zoom in and you can see where that's going to travel forwards before it hits that part of the foot. And so you can kind of like work your design and then build the assembly and then modify the design from what you're discovering in the assembly. But that's pretty much it. There are ways you can add assembly constraint, what are we going to call those, connectors. I'll just switch back to that test thing. So let's say for some crazy reason, where's the base gone? There it is. Say for some crazy reason you wanted to have a connector that wasn't in any of these locations, and you didn't want to have to add geometry to put one there. You can just kind of like click a connector and then put some moves on it. So you could say like 25 by 50, and for some bizarre reason it puts a mate connector over there. I have no idea why you'd want to do that, because usually you want to mate things either the edge, the midpoint, or the center of a circle. But if you want to do that, you can. Let's just delete that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the basis of assemblies. You can do everything you can do everything with assemblies that you can with anything else. So you can right click and you can edit the constraints. You can open the you can switch to sub-assemblies and stuff from the assembly window. You can edit in context. Yeah, that's it. Pretty much, that's all you really need to know about assemblies. You should be able to go out there now and figure out what these constraints are and build some stuff. If you have any problems or any questions, just shove them in the comments as usual, and I'll probably get round to them at some point. And that's about it for now. So, as usual, I've been Steve. Thanks for listening.